I never thought I'd tell this story online. Honestly, it's been years since I've even talked about it. Partly because every time I remember it, I can't sleep properly for the next few nights. The other reason is because I know that after hearing it, most people will think I'm making it up. Maybe if this had happened to the old version of me, I would have thought the same thing. This happened sometime near the end of 2017. Back then, I was 24, working freelance as a videographer and editor with my two best friends, Tyler and Mason. At the time, we were really into urban exploration content. Abandoned places, old hospitals, closed schools, stuff like that. Not because we believed in ghosts or anything. Those videos were just going viral back then. Tyler was the one who found the house first. He dropped an old post into our group chat from some local forum. Someone claimed there was an abandoned house at the end of Willow Street that had been empty for nearly 20 years. The previous owner supposedly disappeared for unknown reasons, and nobody had lived there since. Sounded pretty normal, until Tyler sent another photo. The picture was taken from outside the fence. A faded white two-story wooden house sat hidden among dead trees. Most of the upstairs windows were shattered. Part of the roof had collapsed inward. But the thing that caught my attention was, in the top right window upstairs, there was a figure standing there, staring down. Tyler texted, "I think it's just a mannequin." Mason replied immediately, "Perfect. We filmed this weekend." I don't know why, but something about it instantly made me uncomfortable. Not scared, just that really hard to explain feeling you get when your instincts tell you that you shouldn't get too close to a place. But in the end, I still went. That Saturday afternoon, we drove almost 2 hours to Willow Creek. It was a tiny town that felt practically dead already. The kind of place where every store closes early, the gas station only has one employee, and people stare at strangers like they haven't seen a new face in months. When we stopped at a gas station near town to buy drinks, the old man working there looked at the camera equipment in our car and asked, "You boys heading to the house at the end of Willow Street?" Tyler laughed. "Yeah, probably." The man went quiet for a few seconds. Then he simply said, "Don't stay there after dark." I still remember exactly the way he said it. It didn't sound like some ghost story warning. It sounded real. Tyler asked, "Why?" The old man just shook his head. "People in this town don't go near that place anymore." And that was all he said. About 30 minutes later, we arrived. The house looked far worse than it did in the photo. It sat completely isolated from the other homes at the end of an old dirt road overgrown with weeds. The wooden fence in front was nearly rotted through. The downstairs windows had been boarded shut. No birds, no insects, just the sound of wind moving through the dead trees behind the house. Tyler was the first one to climb over the fence. He even pointed the selfie camera at himself, grinning excitedly. "Welcome to the creepiest house in Colorado." Mason laughed and followed him inside. And me? I remember standing on the front porch, feeling something really strange. Like the house was watching us. Sounds stupid, right? But that's genuinely what it felt like. The front door wasn't locked. The second Tyler pushed it open, the smell of mold and rot poured out. The air inside was noticeably colder than outside. That damp kind of cold like an old basement that hasn't seen light in years. Our flashlights swept across a living room covered in dust. Everything was still there. The couch, an old TV, a wall clock. There were even family photos still sitting on the shelf. The weirdest part was, everything looked like the people living there had left very suddenly. It didn't feel like a house abandoned for 20 years. There was still a drinking glass sitting on the table, a coat hanging near the door, a child's shoe lying in the middle of the hallway. Tyler slowly filmed around the room and laughed nervously. "Okay, this is actually getting kind of creepy now." Mason started walking toward the staircase. Then he called out to us, "Yo, come look at this." Tyler and I followed him upstairs. And right then, I started hearing something, very faint. Knock, 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 like someone was walking across the wooden floor above us. We froze in the middle of the staircase for a few seconds. Then the sound came again from above us. Knock, 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 very slow. like someone barefoot walking across old wooden floors. Tyler was the first to speak. "Is someone up there?" No answer. I remember trying to calm myself down, thinking it was probably just a raccoon or something in the attic. But Mason was genuinely uncomfortable now. He whispered, "That sounds more like human footsteps." The second floor had 3 bedrooms. 2 of them were completely empty. The last room had an old bed covered in dust and strange scribbles all over the walls. I swept my flashlight around the room, then suddenly stopped. Near the window, painted across the wall in black letters, was a sentence. "She doesn't like when people look up." Tyler actually laughed after reading it. Okay, somebody definitely tried way too hard to make this place creepy. But I noticed Mason's face. Something about him looked seriously wrong. He kept glancing up at the ceiling over and over again. The footsteps above us were still there. Slow, steady, and getting closer directly over our heads. Tyler started moving toward the staircase leading up to the attic. The small wooden hatch above was slightly open. I asked, "You're seriously going up there?" Tyler grinned. "We came here to film content, remember?" He went first. Mason followed behind him. I was the last one up. I don't know why, but my heart was pounding so hard at that moment. My instincts kept screaming at me to turn around. The attic ceiling was low and unbelievably dark. The air was thick with the smell of rotten wood and years of dust. Our flashlights swept across old furniture draped in white sheets. Chairs, suitcases, picture frames, and right in the middle of the attic was a wooden chair facing away from us. I remember exactly how I felt at that moment. My whole body went cold, because in the thick layer of dust covering the floor, there were footprints, a clear trail of footprints. They started from the dark corner at the far end of the attic and led directly to the chair, then stopped there. There were no footprints leading away. Tyler noticed it too. He stopped smiling immediately. Mason asked quietly, "Is someone here?" Silence. Then, right at that moment, the chair let out a very soft creaking sound. Creak, creak, like someone had just shifted slightly in it. I swear to God, I wanted to run right then and there. Tyler slowly stepped closer. He raised the flashlight, and the second the beam hit the chair, something moved across the corner of the attic. Fast, way too fast to clearly see, but I know for a fact all 3 of us saw it. Mason cursed and stumbled backward. Tyler swung the camera wildly around the attic. "Who's there?" No response. But right after that, we heard a noise from downstairs. The front door slammed shut. Bang! All 3 of us froze solid, because we were absolutely sure we had left the front door open when we came inside. Then, from the first floor, we heard footsteps. Not slow anymore. This time it was running. Bang! 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 Something was charging up the stairs. Tyler practically lunged toward the attic door immediately. He pointed his flashlight down toward the staircase below. No one was there, but the footsteps were still coming. Bang! 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 The sound echoed directly beneath us. Mason backed against the wall. This isn't funny anymore. I had never seen his face that pale before. Then the footsteps stopped completely. Total silence. None of us dared to speak. Tyler swallowed hard and slowly started walking downstairs first. Mason and I followed right behind him. The second floor was empty. No one there. But the thing that sent a chill through my entire body was every bedroom door was open. We were absolutely sure at least 2 of them had been closed earlier. Tyler was genuinely panicking now. He said, "Okay, we got the footage. Let's go." Nobody argued. We practically ran down to the first floor, but the second we stepped into the living room, I realized something was wrong. The old TV in the corner was on. Black and white static filled the screen. I swear it had been completely off when we first entered the house. The crackling static echoed through the entire place. Then, through the noise, a face appeared, only for a second. A woman, eyes wide open, mouth stretched like she was screaming. Then the screen instantly went back to static. Mason practically yelled, "Turn it off." Tyler rushed over and yanked the power cord from the back of the TV. But the screen stayed on. The static grew louder. Then we heard movement upstairs again. Knock, knock, knock. The footsteps had started again. Only this time, they weren't slow anymore. They were running. Bang, bang, bang. From one end of the upstairs hallway straight toward the staircase. Then they stopped, directly above us. I remember all three of us looking up at the exact same time, and I saw it. Someone was standing on the second floor, staring down at us. Very tall, unnaturally thin, long hair covering its face. Its head tilted sideways at an impossible angle. None of us could say a word. Then Tyler's flashlight flickered. Once, twice, and in the exact instant the light flashed on for the last time, that thing was standing halfway down the staircase. Much closer. Tyler screamed, "Run!" We bolted straight for the front door, but it wouldn't open. Mason and I practically slammed our entire bodies against it. It was locked from the outside. That was impossible. Then behind us, we heard footsteps again, very close this time. Knock, knock, knock. Slow. Tyler instinctively swung the camera behind us. And the last thing I remember before we finally got out was, on Tyler's camera screen, that thing wasn't standing on the staircase anymore. It was standing directly behind us. So close it was almost touching Mason's hair. We finally managed to break the door open and run outside. None of us said a single word during the drive home. It wasn't until nearly sunrise that Tyler opened the footage again. Most of the video was corrupted. The audio was completely distorted. But one clip was still intact. The final seconds before we ran. In the footage, Tyler's camera points toward the staircase. There's nobody standing there. No woman. No long hair. Nothing at all. Just the three of us staring up at the second floor like complete lunatics. Then the camera shifts toward the old mirror beside the door. And in the reflection, there are 4 people standing in the living room. Not 3. Part 2. The house that wasn't on the map. After the Willow Street house, I thought we were done with urban exploration content for good. At least I thought so. Tyler was different. He became obsessed with what happened in that house in a really strange way. Not scared. More like he needed to prove that we had actually seen something real. About 2 months later, Tyler started messaging the group chat again. He said he found a new place. An abandoned house deep in the woods near Black Hollow. Mason immediately replied, "Are you out of your mind?" But Tyler kept sending photos. And this time, I have to admit, the place looked far worse than the Willow house. The house sat in the middle of a dense pine forest. A dark, gray 2-story wooden house almost completely swallowed by the trees. No fence, no clear road leading to it. The weirdest part was that Tyler said the house didn't exist on Google Maps. He found it completely by accident while browsing old forums about missing persons cases in Colorado. There was a post from back in 2008 about an entire family disappearing after moving to Black Hollow. The person who made the post claimed the police had once found the house deep in the woods, but when they returned a few days later, the property had somehow vanished from all land records. Sounds completely ridiculous. I know, but the thing that bothered me was, underneath the post was a photograph, and in the upstairs window, there was someone standing there staring outside again. Just like the Willow house. I still remember Mason texting, "I swear to God, if there's another mirror this time, I'm running first." Tyler only replied with, "One last trip." That was the sentence that convinced me. One last trip. I figured we'd just film for a couple hours and leave. None of us knew how bad things were going to get after that night. We arrived at Black Hollow near the end of November. The cold was brutal. The forest was almost completely silent except for the wind. The GPS lost signal about 10 minutes before he got there. Tyler had to use old screenshots of a map to remember the way. That's when Mason started getting uncomfortable. He said, "I hate places like this." Honestly, so did I. There was something wrong about those woods. The air felt heavy, like the trees were swallowing every sound around us. When we finally saw the house, none of us spoke for almost a full minute. It looked even worse than the photos. The entire structure leaned slightly to one side, like it was about to collapse. Part of the roof in the back had caved in completely. Every downstairs window was boarded shut with old wooden planks, but the upstairs window was still open. Tyler was the first to break the silence. "Okay, this is actually too much." Mason asked, "You sure this is the right place?" Tyler nodded. Then he pointed toward the front porch. That's when I noticed the footprints. A lot of footprints in the mud outside the front door. The terrifying part was that every set of footprints led into the house. None of them came back out. Mason immediately wanted to leave after seeing that. "There's somebody in there." But Tyler shook his head. "They're old tracks." I crouched down for a closer look. They weren't old. The mud was still wet. I remember that cold feeling crawling down my spine the moment I realized it. But Tyler still stepped onto the front porch first. Every step made the wooden boards crack loudly like they were about to snap. Then he pushed on the front door. It opened immediately, unlocked. The second the door creaked open, a blast of cold air and mold rushed out from inside. That stale smell old sealed houses have after years without sunlight. But there was something else mixed in with it too. A metallic smell. Faint. Tyler turned on the camera. "Okay, this is definitely the creepiest place we've ever been." Nobody answered him, because right at that moment, a sound echoed down from upstairs. Knock, 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 like someone had just walked across the wooden floor directly above our heads. The three of us froze near the doorway for a few seconds. Nobody said a word. Then the footsteps upstairs came again. Knock, knock, knock. Very slow, very steady, like someone was pacing in circles on the second floor. Mason muttered under his breath, "There's no way somebody actually lives in this place." Tyler forced a laugh. Maybe homeless people, but his voice didn't sound nearly as confident as before. The inside of the house was much darker than I expected. Our flashlights swept across a living room buried in dust and cobwebs. An old clock still hung on the wall, its hands frozen at 2:13. I don't know why I still remember that detail so clearly. 2:13. Later on, I realized almost every terrible thing started around that time. Tyler filmed around the living room. Mason kept staring up at the ceiling, and I noticed something strange. There wasn't much dust on the floor. At least not as much as there should have been. It looked like someone had been walking through this house regularly. We slowly started toward the staircase. The footsteps upstairs stopped the exact moment we stepped onto the first stair. The air inside the house was freezing. I could actually see my breath in the flashlight beams. The second floor had a long hallway with 4 rooms. 3 of them were empty. The last room had its door closed, and above the door, something had been painted in black. At first I thought it was writing, but when I looked closer, I realized they were dozens of handprints. Children's handprints. Tyler moved the camera closer. "Jesus Christ." Mason immediately said, "I don't like this." Then we heard a noise coming from inside the room. Scrape, scrape, like something heavy being dragged across the floor. Tyler slowly stepped closer to the door. I remember saying, "Don't open it." But Tyler still reached for the doorknob. And right as he was about to turn it, there was knocking from inside the room. Knock, knock, knock. All 3 of us jumped. Tyler stumbled backward hard. Then everything went silent. No dragging sound. No footsteps. Just the wind outside. At that point, Mason was almost panicking. "I told you, there's somebody in this house." But I knew the thing terrifying us most wasn't the idea that someone was inside. It was the knocking sounded way too calm, way too deliberate, like whatever was inside knew we were standing outside the door. Tyler eventually opened it anyway. The room inside was almost completely empty. No bed, no closet, nothing, except an old video camera sitting in the middle of the floor. I recognized it immediately as an old high-8 camcorder. A red recording light was blinking. It was recording. That should have been impossible. This house definitely didn't have electricity. Tyler slowly stepped into the room. He picked up the camera. The small screen on the side was still working, and the first thing that appeared on it was footage of us standing inside that exact room. But the angle was from the far corner of the room, like someone was holding the camera and filming us at that very moment. Mason backed all the way toward the doorway. No, oh, no, no, no. Then Tyler rewound part of the tape, and all the color drained from his face. I asked, "What is it?" Tyler didn't answer. He just turned the camera screen toward me, and I saw older footage, a video recorded inside this exact room. A family was standing there. A man, a woman, a little girl around 8 years old. They looked absolutely terrified. The man kept locking the bedroom door while the woman held their daughter and cried. Then from out in the hallway came footsteps. Knock, 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 exactly like the ones we had just heard. None of us said a word after watching that footage. The only sound in the room was the faint static coming from the old camcorder. In the video, the man kept staring at the door like he was waiting for something to appear. Then the little girl started crying. She whispered, "It's standing out there." The woman pulled her close. "Don't look at the door." But right after that, there was knocking. Knock, knock, knock. All three of us froze solid in real life. Because at the exact same moment, we heard knocking out in the hallway too. Exactly the same as the video. Perfectly in sync. Mason practically screamed, "Turn that thing off." Tyler stopped the tape, but the knocking outside the hallway continued. Knock, knock, knock. Then we heard the doorknob slowly turning. Creak. I remember exactly how that felt. My entire body locked up, because we were standing inside the only room on the second floor. If someone was outside in the hallway, there was nowhere left to run. Tyler slowly backed away from the door. Mason looked like he was genuinely about to cry. Then suddenly, footsteps exploded through the hallway. No longer slow. Bang, bang, bang. Something was running outside, running unbelievably fast, from one end of the hallway to the other. Then it stopped directly in front of the door. Silence. A few seconds later, we heard laughing. Very soft. A child's voice. Tyler whispered shakily, "You heard that too, right?" Nobody answered him, because right then, the old camcorder turned itself back on. The screen filled with static for a few seconds. Then new footage appeared. The family was gone. Now the camera angle showed the far end of the upstairs hallway. We could see ourselves standing inside the room, as if another camera was filming live from outside the door. Mason saw it and completely lost it. What the hell is that? Then in the footage, someone moved across the hallway. Very tall, head hanging low, moving unnaturally fast. Not like a normal person at all. I swear my heart nearly stopped right there. Because immediately after the figure passed by, in the footage, the bedroom door slowly started opening. But in real life, the door was still completely shut. Tyler whispered, "No, that's impossible." Then in the video, we saw what was standing outside the door. Extremely tall, arms far too long, its face completely black. It stood there motionless for a few seconds. Then, slowly raised its head and looked directly into the camera. The instant that happened, every flashlight we had suddenly died at the same time. The entire house dropped into complete darkness. I heard Mason screaming somewhere beside me. Then footsteps echoed from inside the room. Knock, knock, knock. Very close. Way too close. I barely even dared to breathe. Then something stopped directly in front of me. I couldn't see it, but I could hear liquid dripping onto the floor. Drip, drip. And right beside my ear, a tiny voice whispered, "You shouldn't have come back." The next second, every flashlight flickered back on. The room was completely empty. Tyler was the first one to bolt out the door. The three of us practically fell down the staircase trying to escape. But when we reached the living room, the front door was already open, wide open, freezing wind pouring into the house. And in the dust near the doorway, there were fresh footprints. Footprints leading from the second floor staircase, all the way to the front door. The worst part was, they weren't human footprints. They were too long, and there was only one foot. Adrian said that at that point, all three of them were nearly losing their minds. The footsteps on the second floor were unbelievably loud. Not like a child, not like a normal person. It sounded like something trying to run on two legs, even though its body was too long. Bang, bang, bang. Then suddenly the footsteps stopped directly above the kitchen. Complete silence. Connor practically screamed, "Open the door." He yanked the doorknob so hard it almost snapped off, but the door still wouldn't move. Elise stood frozen, staring at the ceiling, her face completely pale. Adrian asked, "What?" Elise didn't answer right away. She slowly raised her hand and pointed upward. Then Adrian heard it too. Voices, very faint, directly above them, like several people were standing upstairs whispering to each other. You couldn't make out words, only overlapping voices. Constant, never stopping. Then came the sound of a child laughing. Connor looked like he was genuinely about to cry. Adrian said he had never seen Connor that terrified before. Then the kitchen lights started flickering. Once, twice, 3 times. And in the instant the lights flickered back on, someone was standing at the top of the staircase. A woman, extremely thin, wearing an old white dress, long hair covering her face. None of them knew when she had appeared there. She didn't move, just stood there staring down at them. Then slowly, she tilted her head to one side. Adrian said his entire body locked up at that moment, because the thing standing on the staircase was far taller than a normal person. Its arms almost reached its knees. And the most horrifying part was, behind the woman, there were several more heads peeking out from the darkness of the upstairs hallway. Like the entire family was standing behind her. Connor started screaming, "Don't look up," but was already too late. The woman suddenly charged down the stairs, not running normally. She moved on both hands and feet, so fast she almost looked like she was crawling across the walls. Elise screamed. Connor slammed into the front door again, and this time it burst open. All 3 of them bolted straight into the field outside. Adrian said they didn't stop running until they reached the car. But right before getting inside, Elise turned back toward the house, and she started crying. Adrian asked her what she saw. Elise only said one sentence: "There are people standing in every window." That night, they reviewed the footage. Most of the video was corrupted. The audio was completely distorted, but one clip was still watchable. The moment they were standing in the kitchen, the camera briefly pans across the staircase. There's no woman standing there. Nobody at all. Just the dark hallway upstairs. But when Adrian slowed the footage down, he realized something far worse. Throughout the entire video, at the far end of the upstairs hallway, there was a face staring down at them the whole time, completely motionless. None of them had noticed it while they were inside the house. The final thing Adrian wrote in that post is something I still remember to this day. He said, "I don't think the Harper house was ever abandoned." Then after a few blank lines, "I think something is still living in there, pretending to be a family." Part 3. The thing I saw inside the house. I wasn't the first person something happened to in that house. Actually, this story isn't even mine. It belongs to someone named Adrian. I met Adrian sometime in early 2021 on an urban exploration forum. By then, after what happened to Black Hollow, I had pretty much stopped filming videos altogether, but every now and then I still browse the old groups out of curiosity. Adrian was the kind of person who barely talked, didn't post much, didn't chase attention. Not the type to post stuff like, "Bro, I saw a ghost." But there was one post from him that made the entire forum go silent for almost a full day. The title was only one sentence: "I don't think that house was ever abandoned." I still remember how long the post was. It was written in a really messy way. Like the person writing, it was trying to remember something they didn't actually want to remember. And the more I read, the more uncomfortable I felt, because it sounded too real. Adrian lived in Oregon. Near the end of 2020, he and 2 friends, Connor and Elise, were filming urban exploration videos for a pretty small YouTube channel. A subscriber sent Adrian the address of an old house near Silver Lake. The person claimed the place once belonged to the Harper family, a family that had almost completely vanished in the early 2000s. The police investigated it back then, but they never found anything except the empty house. The strange part was that for years afterward, people still occasionally saw lights inside the house at night, even though the place had no electricity. At first, Adrian assumed it was probably just homeless people living there. until the subscribers sent one more message. If you go inside the house, don't look up at the second floor window. Adrian admitted he probably should have ignored it after that. But too many people on the forum had already started talking about the house. So eventually they went anyway. They arrived at Silver Lake close to sunset. And the second Adrian got to this part of the story, I started feeling uneasy because stories like this always begin the same way. A remote place, an old house, a warning, and somebody walks in anyway. The Harper house sat completely isolated from the main road behind a field of dead grass. No neighbors, no estretlits. The house itself was pale yellow, though most of the paint had almost completely faded away. Part of the front porch roof had collapsed. Every downstairs window had been boarded shut, except for one upstairs window, slightly open. Adrian said the moment they got out of the car, Connor immediately said, "I hate this place." Nobody laughed, because even Elise, the one who normally loved creepy content, had gone quiet the second she saw the house. There was something deeply wrong about that place. Adrian described the feeling like the house had been waiting for them. Sounds insane, but I understood exactly what he meant, because I felt the exact same thing at Willow. They climbed over the old fence. The grass beneath their feet came up almost to their knees. No insects, no birds, only wind. Then Connor suddenly stopped. He pointed down at the ground near the porch. There were footprints, fresh footprints, a lot of them, leading from behind the house straight to the front door. And the worst part was, they were different sizes, like an entire family was still living there. Adrian said the second Connor saw the footprints, he immediately wanted to leave. But Elise still believed someone was actually living inside. She even said, "If they're squatters, we'll just apologize and leave." It sounded reasonable. At least at that point, they were still trying to think logically. But Adrian said the closer he got to the house, the stronger the feeling became that someone was watching them from the second floor. Not the normal kind of being watched feeling. More like his instincts were constantly screaming, "Don't look up." The strange thing was that all three of them avoided looking at the upstairs window, as if they instinctively understood they weren't supposed to. The front door wasn't locked. The second Connor pushed it open. The smell inside rushed out immediately. Not the smell of a corpse. Not mold. It smelled like a house that had been lived in for far too long without anyone ever opening the windows. The air felt sealed. Heavy. Adrian said the first thing he noticed was everything inside was way too clean. It didn't look abandoned. There was dust on the couch, but not much. Plates still sat on the dining table. The wall clock was still ticking. Tick, tick, tick. Connor even said, "Someone actually lives here." Then Elise noticed something in the kitchen. A pot of water, still warm. When Adrian wrote that part, it got chills all over again, because that meant someone had been there right before they walked in. But the entire house was silent. No TV, no footsteps, no voices, only the clock. Adrian started calling out, "Hello." Nobody answered. Then Connor noticed the staircase leading upstairs. The exact moment the flashlight beam hit it, a sound echoed from above. Knock, knock, knock. 3 footsteps, like someone had just crossed the upstairs hallway. Elise whispered, "There's someone here." But Adrian said that in that moment, he knew it wasn't. He couldn't explain why. He just knew. Then, from upstairs, came a sound of a child laughing. Very faint, very far away. Connor instantly cursed. "Nope, we're done." But right as all 3 of them turned to leave, the front door slammed shut by itself. Bang! The sound was so loud the whole house shook. Connor rushed over and grabbed the doorknob. It wouldn't open, locked from the outside, which made absolutely no sense. Then the kitchen lights turned on, all at once. An old yellow glow filled the room. And that's when Adrian noticed the family portrait hanging on the wall. The Harper family, the father, the mother, a little girl, a little boy, and behind them, there was someone else. A woman standing in the darkness at the end of the hallway. None of the 3 of them noticed her until Connor said, "Why are there 4 adults in this picture?" And the exact moment he said that, running footsteps exploded from the second floor. Bang, bang, bang. Something was sprinting across the hallway directly above them.